So welcome to day 2 of CSR Marketplace Virtual 2025. In today's session, Reimagining Corporate Impact Data, Strategy, and Storytelling, sponsored by Rocket Social Impact. My name is Jean Metzger. I'm the Vice President of Membership Marketing and Communications here at ACCP, and I'm so glad that you were joining us today. This is one of 9 sessions that we're doing as part of our CSR Marketplace Virtual program. The registration will stay open for the remaining sessions. You'll see the schedule on your screen. And we encourage you to register for additional sessions. They are all being recorded, and the recordings will be released next week and will be available through the end of the year. Before we get started with today's program, I would like to highlight a couple upcoming ACCP events. So our next members-only topical discussion will be on signature partnerships and will be held on July 10th. We will be releasing our CSR Insight survey results on July 17th. And that afternoon, we also will be holding our monthly ACCP membership webinar. You'll hear everything that's happening about ACCP, hear insights from our new CEO, Andrea Wood, at our State of the Association meeting on August 19th, so encourage members to register for that. And we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary this year at our annual conference, which will be held in Atlanta, September 15 through 17. And I would like to point out that the early bird registration deadline is this Friday. So we hope you can join us, and we encourage you to attend and get we encourage you to register by Friday so you can get the best price. And then we'll round out our educational programs with our Employee Engagement Virtual Summit on November 12 and 13. We also have been getting out to the community this year and have several local happy hours scheduled. We'll be in Minneapolis on July 30th. We'll be in Boston on September 25th. We'll be in New York on October 16th. And we'll be in San Francisco the first week of December. We will be sending out registration information about all of these events shortly, and we hope that you'll keep an eye out for it. For those members on the call who want to learn more about everything that membership offers you, or if you are considering membership and would like to learn more, we do encourage you to visit our membership page. There's a QR code and the link on the screen. And after I'm done with the introductory remarks, I will drop my email into the chat. If you have any questions, please reach out. And with that, let's get started. Couple Zoom housekeeping and logistics. We have turned on live transcript. So at the bottom of the screen, you click live transcript, and you can click on the caret to see the full transcript. We also encourage you to interact with one another and our speaker through the Zoom chat. And we will be taking questions, and we're going to be saving the questions to the end, but at any time during the program, we encourage you to enter your question in the Q&A section of Zoom on the bottom. And if you see a question that you also want to hear the answer to, please click the thumbs up icon so we know that it's an important question and we'll prioritize it. And with that, I would like to introduce our speaker today, Drew Yukelson, who's with Rocket Social Impact. Please, Drew, take it away.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Drew, a Senior Account Director here at Rocket Social Impact, and I'm excited to share today a little bit more about how we're helping companies evolve the way that they think about strategy, measurement, storytelling in their social impact work. I've been at Rocket for 3.5 years after coming from both the private and public sectors. And I've honestly always been a social impact nerd. And that's why I'm really excited to share with you this presentation that we're calling Reimagining Corporate Impact, because we're really in a moment that calls for doing things differently with more honesty, more collaboration, and more strategic and more strategically, I should say. So let's hop right in. If you're not familiar with Rocket Social Impact, we are a social impact agency. Social impact is all we do. We work with both companies and nonprofits, supporting them from the earliest stages of strategy development all the way through execution, measurement, and communications. And what makes our approach different is that we look at everything holistically. We don't believe that strategy and measurement are separate steps. They have to work in concert with each other. And we also believe that your measurement systems should not just be spitting out numbers. They should be generating powerful insights for you to act on and powerful stories for you to share with your stakeholders. This really, for us, isn't about checking boxes. It's more about building something that's meaningful and durable. So here's what you can expect to learn today. We're going to identify a key challenge that many social impact leaders are facing, why the traditional CSR measurement is falling short, and why now is the right time to be rethinking the model. We'll unpack some case studies that I've had the pleasure of being a part of and how some leading companies are building adaptive strategies aligned with their North Star goals. As a part of that, we'll explore how companies can show up as true partners to their nonprofits, not just funders. And finally, we'll dig into some of the storytelling mechanics to share how your impact is resonating with stakeholders in a meaningful way and actually reflects the real work that's being done on the ground. But let's begin with the why. Why do we need to reimagine all of this in the first place? Well, according to ACCP's 2024 CSR Insight reports, 71% of corporate impact leaders report increased pressure to demonstrate impact and show results. That number is huge. It was actually the number one issue listed among social impact leaders. But we also know this is a time where there are economic headwinds, and many teams are dealing with limited resources, leaner staff, and an audience that has just grown more skeptical and attuned to BS. People can tell when something is performative, and more companies are getting called out for it. So all that to say that the bar is now higher, but rightly so. And the stakes are higher too. Leaders are being asked not only to fund good programs, but to also prove that these programs actually work. So at a time when every dollar is being scrutinized and every claim is being questioned, the old way of doing things isn't enough. The old playbook just isn't going to cut it. Publishing a year-end impact report filled with outputs about how many people you reached isn't enough anymore. And it isn't enough because it doesn't tell the full story. And without the full story, you can't build trust with your stakeholders, you can't drive buy-in from your leadership, and you can't improve on what you're doing. So then the question becomes, what's the path forward? Well, I'd like to introduce you to a framework that we created at Rocket that we use to help companies evolve their approaches. So within the strategic evolution playbook, there are 4 key components that we walk through with our clients. The first is about building a durable strategy that's anchored in a clear North Star and can adapt over time. Then we think about moving from counting outputs to demonstrating outcomes and how organizations can co-create these models with their nonprofit partners. We think about how we can create multidimensional value for nonprofit partners beyond just writing a check. And lastly, but not least, we work on storytelling that goes beyond marketing, because even the best data in the world isn't going to do much if no one understands it or cares about it. So let's start with how to build a strong strategy. Leading programs are anchored by a clear North Star and designed with strategic durability and resiliency in mind. We need to start by thinking about what's the actual change that we're working towards. If you were in the seat of your nonprofit leaders, you'd be thinking about how can we work ourselves out of a job because we have effectively solved the issue that we're trying to solve. From there, it's important to lay out some strategic pathways. What are the approaches that we're confident will help us achieve our goals? But we also need to build in some tactical flexibility because we know that things are going to shift and we need to be able to respond. There's going to be tariffs put in place that are unexpected. Political conversations are going to evolve at the national level. There are going to be news headlines that require responses. So how do you meet these needs while also maintaining progress towards your overall North Star goal? We think that in order to do that, you need to be focused on building measurement processes that highlight if you're tracking progress in ways that are both meaningful and practical. So let's take a look at an example of a case of a client that we recently worked with. The Dick's Sporting Goods Foundation has been around for 10 plus years. Their mission is to ensure that every kid has a chance to play because they believe that sports have the power to change lives. I share that with them. But they came to us with one issue in mind. They were excellent at counting how many kids they'd had gone through their programs. When we met with them, it was nearing 2 million. But the key question they couldn't answer is how do they know if their programs are actually leading to lives changed? So together, we co-designed a multi-year strategy focused on deepening impact in their key cities to complement all of the local store grants they were giving out. We built flexibility into their grant structures and added feedback loops and mechanisms to gather insights from their grantees and helped align their metrics to track youth development indicators like confidence and school attendance, school engagement, and self-reported health outcomes. It's really a great example of how a clear vision, thoughtful measurement, and collaboration can drive more sustainable impact. And we're confident that this strategy that we help them create is going to take them into the next decade of their foundation's growth. But we also know that any strategy that is durable needs to be rooted in the measurement, a strong measurement approach. And if you only take one thing away from this conversation today, I would like it to be this slide, because the absolute bottom line is very similar to business. What we measure communicates what we value, but it also directly impacts our ability to tell compelling stories about how our programs are changing lives. So I want to take a second to walk through how we've seen measurement models be approached in the past and what the new approach offers us moving forward. Previously, you've all probably seen goals based or bold North Star goals and impact reports based on outcomes, which track what was done, the number of people served or activities that you held. But this new approach is really more focused on demonstrating outcomes, how lives were changed, what were the results of the programs you funded. It's a shift from focusing on meeting obligations and reporting requirements to using the insights that you gather through cadenced meetings with partners to drive continuous improvement and drive your decision making moving forward. It's also about shifting your mindset from attribution to contribution. And this is an important one. So of this important slide, this is, I think, one of the most important things that you can take away from it. In the past, we know funders have been focused on what did my grant do specifically? Where did my dollars go? And what were the results that were confined within our funding contributions? Our grant caused X result. But what we really need and advise our clients to do is shift towards a contribution mindset. So our partnership enabled X result for our nonprofit partners. And what this does is it recognizes and acknowledges that no one entity is going to be able to solve social impact problems alone. No one organization, no nonprofit, no business. So it's important to think about how your contribution and your capacity building is also driving outcomes that stretch beyond your dollars. But to also understand that we're moving from year-end reporting or grant cycle reporting that looks backwards and summarizes what was accomplished and is thrown in a drawer to having cadenced meetings with your nonprofit partners that inform your strategy moving forward. So how are you learning in real time about the challenges that partners are facing to inform your insights moving forward? So we've unpacked what this new approach looks like now, but you might be wondering, how can I do this? What do I need to implement this into my own programs? And it's important to note that leading programs are infusing trust-based philanthropies into these practices, but they're also taking time to build sustainable measurement infrastructure. These are two separate ideas, and I want to just take one moment to pull over and address the idea of trust-based philanthropy, because whether we like it or not, it's become a charged term in the industry. I think a lot of companies and leaders think that they either are trust-based focused or they're not trust-based. But in my perspective, it's really about more of a spectrum of how you can incorporate trust-based principles into your practices. So we have companies that do it extremely well. We have some, for one reason or another, that we work with that just aren't able to incorporate as much as they'd like due to constraints that they face. But one of the easiest ways that you can begin to introduce trust-based philanthropy into your program is through co-developing KPIs with your partners. This means sitting with them to understand, what are they measuring? What do they think they need to be measuring in order to signal that their programs have been successful? It really means working alongside subject matter experts who are your nonprofits to really mine for the best outcomes, which will ultimately lead to the best impact storytelling. We've seen in the past that companies often come to their nonprofit partners saying, we need XYZ to be measured, but this really misses what matters most to communities and what those individuals who have the lived experience or are working in this sector day in and day out see as the most important measures of success. On the other hand, it's important to give yourself some grace. You may be coming to this with a sophisticated monitoring and evaluation program already in place. You may not have much in the way of your infrastructure built out. Either way, one of the biggest challenges we see is when companies try to bite off more than they can chew. We really recommend taking a crawl, walk, run approach because it's going to set you up for success. It's going to allow you the time to have these conversations with your nonprofit partners and to find the opportunities for really developing a program that surfaces high quality data. So I want to take you through what this looks like for one of the clients that I worked with recently. Ulta Beauty, they're charitable. They have a charitable foundation. Their mission is to support the well-being of women and teens, helping them unleash possibilities by investing in mental, physical, and social health. And when we started partnering with them, it was really with the goal to help them develop a solution to track their impact, to build alignment with their internal and external stakeholders, and to ultimately be able to tell their story more effectively. They really hadn't done too much in the way of measurement in the past, despite having high impact nonprofit partners. So we started working with them to identify the right KPIs, the right outcomes that they ultimately wanted to work towards, and then deconstructed the process in reverse. This meant having conversations to understand where their partners were already reporting and where there were opportunities for them to learn from their nonprofit partners. But it also meant realizing that the reality is that some partners aren't going to be able to fit neatly into the boxes or your ideal boxes of outcomes that align to your focus areas. So it's important. And in the case of Ulta, we had to identify some of their partners that were really best to highlight some of the qualitative data that they were gathering. So although this can be anecdotal, it can be an extremely important supplement and way to augment the quantitative data that you're gathering because it introduces the storytelling that will unpack a little bit more later and really elevates your holistic ability to tell the story of the impact your program is having. We ultimately landed on some long-term outcomes like increased confidence and coping skills and sense of belonging that was sort of the Venn diagram amongst their partners. And that's where we began to set our sights working towards. We instituted a 2-year measurement phase approach. And so in year 1, we were having these conversations with partners and really beginning to document and catalog some of the outputs that their partners are responsible for. So I know I just said that we're moving from outputs to outcomes, but at the same time, it's also very important to understand the outputs that your partners are generating, because that's going to be the foundation and the bedrock from which your measurement program can really build and evolve from. We know that it's also probably going to be the easiest data for your partners to pull. So keep in mind that it can be a great way for them to begin to build that muscle. But as I mentioned, none of this work happens in a vacuum. You need to co-create with your partners and have them at the table alongside you, which brings me to my third core component of this playbook, which is that multi-dimensional value for partners is critical. And all the leading programs are investing in this long-term and holistic partnership. Coming back to the idea of trust-based philanthropy, multi-year unrestricted grants are certainly a tenet that we see often. It's okay if you can't right now invest in multi-year partnerships, or you can't have unrestricted grants for one reason or another. If you can pick and choose one or either or, that's okay too. It's where you're at in your journey, and it will ultimately help you align yourself with best practices in the industry. We know that a lot of partners are all or programs are already focused on in-kind donation, but we also want to build in opportunities for employee volunteering. Specifically, the best in class is skills-based volunteering, but also how you can use your platform as a company to elevate and spotlight your nonprofit partners and the issues that they're facing, or I should say, the issues that they care about. One underestimated aspect is also the value you can provide in terms of capacity building for your partners. How can you uncover some research or tools, or leverage your internal expertise, or even convene grantees to begin to have conversations together? Let's take a look at two examples of how companies are doing this in a really impactful way. The first is Beazer Homes. They are a home construction company, and they partnered with one of their local nonprofits in Atlanta, Gigi's Playhouse, which serves individuals with Down syndrome, to transform an unused space into an accessible teaching kitchen. Employees from all over the company, from construction and design and project management, led this transformation to ultimately provide a ton of value for their partner at minimal costs. The best part of this, in my nerdy perspective as a social impact practitioner, was that they also brought in their business partners there to source materials and not only keep costs low, but transforming or transcending their business relationships and bringing that into their philanthropy at work. And the result was a completed space that now hosts cooking and nutrition workshops as part of their life skills training for participants. Another idea, and this one's a little bit different. You have to kind of put yourself in the mindset of maybe a program officer at a foundation, but Rare Impact Fund, as part of Rare Beauty, hosts a convening for their partners over a 2-day immersive experience. Their interactive workshops they lead are also co-authored by experts and help partners gain tools and strategies to scale their impact and strengthen their operations and also deepen their resilience. This work not only supports nonprofits' missions, it also deepens trust with the Rare Impact Fund, but it also strengthens the ecosystem, because the chances are if one of your nonprofits that are focused on a specific issue or is having a challenge, it's most likely that another organization is having the similar challenge. And it's important to also raise this up, because when stories of success are told well, these can inspire others to get involved from across all sectors. So I want to wrap up by talking about storytelling and the importance of it. We know that data shows what happened, but the stories also show why your stakeholders should care. So I believe that authentic impact storytelling requires 4 key components. The first is to really ground your impact in reality. Be honest about the scale and scope of what you're achieving. This goes back to one of the first slides around how audiences are really attuned to BS, and gone are the days when you can make outlandish claims. There are too many consumers who are skeptical and looking for this type of sort of misleading claims. But rather, it's important to also not just project yourself as perfect, but to celebrate the progress that you're making along the way. So if you're able to ground all of your communications in the reality of your program, it makes for more honest and authentic communication. The best way that you can lead with authenticity is to lead with your humanity. to center the voices of your nonprofit partners and the communities that they serve. Uplift the voices of your leaders who are the subject matter experts. These are your nonprofit partners. They have a wealth of experience and they are ready and willing to be called upon to lead and contribute to your messaging. As we talked a little bit about earlier, this mindset shift from attribution to contribution is really helpful in connecting your work to the bigger picture. Show how your impact fits into the broader movements or systemic challenges that you're trying to help break down. Recognize that no one entity is going to solve an issue, and no one's expecting a single company to. The collective impact approach is really mandatory at this point because it is the reality on the ground. And lastly, the last important part is to make your storytelling actionable. Showcase what others can learn from your approaches. That's part of celebrating your progress and not your perfection. Highlight how stakeholders can get involved and also preview where your strategy is going. This is a great way to use the annual report that you have to benchmark your progress from this time last year, but also to tie it back to your bold North Star goal and invite stakeholders into your strategy moving forward. So now you have a little bit of a better understanding of my philosophy and what we do at Rocket. I really enjoyed getting to share this all with you. As you can tell, I have a lot of passion and energy for it. And if you would, I would love to take some time to speak with you if you're so inclined about any of the challenges that you're facing within your program and explore ways that Rocket can help to accelerate your strategy evolution. We do everything from North Star development to custom KPI development and design to authentic storytelling and messaging development as well. So thanks so much. I'd be happy to take any questions that you all have.
Yeah, so this is a great time for everyone to drop your questions in the Q&A. I will start off with a couple of questions that I have, if that is okay. So Drew, what role does trust-based philanthropy play in all this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it comes to life in a few different ways. It comes to life through speaking with your nonprofit partners about the challenges that they're having, really inviting them to be at the table with you in your strategy and measurement development, but also in the way that you're thinking about structuring your grants. We talked a little bit about multi-year grants. These are important because a lot of the long-term outcomes that we are striving for don't happen over the course of a single grant cycle or a single year. It really takes some partnership over the long term to see these outcomes come to life. It could also look like unrestricted funding, thinking about if you're going to be treating and approaching your nonprofits as true partners, trusting them to know where the money is going to be best used, and following their lead in that capacity.
Great. Sort of on the same path, how do you balance the need for accountability and the need for CSR professionals to be able to tell their story and tell their impact to the business? It's also the realities of nonprofit partners in terms of being lean organizations, not that much staff, limited technology, may not have the data that you want. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's actually the first conversation we typically have with clients when we're exploring building measurement models, because there's always a concern that data and measurement and evaluation is going to be a burden on nonprofits. But it's important to also know that this information that we're gathering is going to be invaluable for them as they go out and seek additional partners. It's really about demonstrating the efficacy of their programs, and that is a gold standard at this point for attracting new partnerships. So, it's ultimately going to help them in the long run, but part of the process of ensuring that it's not a burden is to ask them what their capacity needs are. Do they need tablets to go out and collect the information? Do they need support in terms of how they can approach their participants? Just having honest conversations can really alleviate any of the burden and really switch that and flip it to a strength. I think the other part of accountability that a lot of the leaders are demanding at this point, it goes beyond just specific data numbers. It's about talking about how we're working to support good programs that have quality outcomes, but also, again, laddering up to how this work is fitting within, the SDGs or local level or national goals. So it's a way to really broaden the scope of how you think about accountability and what success looks like.
That's great. And this is a topic that we've seen a little bit on ACP's online communities. Do you see any of your clients funding that capacity for the nonprofits?
Yeah, yeah, not everybody. It's just not in
Right.
budgets. We know that right now everybody's sort of swimming in the same economic waters, so to speak. So it's not always in the budget, but we do recommend that companies start to ask, like, what are the needs of nonprofits if we're going to be serious about investing in this over the long term. It's also going to be important to bookmark some money for supporting nonprofits. I think if that's just completely off the table for you, that's where, again, these conversations with the nonprofits and open and honest conversations can help to alleviate some of that stress. So, hey, we're actually not able to provide that support for you, but can we find a workaround that's going to still deliver us the high quality data while not, working within the constraints that we've got?
There's actually a great question in the Q&A now. Is there a graceful way of transitioning from a less strategic CSR process to a more strategic focus based one without impacting reputation and community?
So, how can you evolve your strategy? Is that basically the question without reputation risk?
Yeah, I mean, the way I interpret it is that sometimes as you're trying to be more strategic, you evaluate your partners, and some of those partner relationships may not be
Yeah,
may align as much. And so you have like,
exactly.
how do you gracefully transition out of relationships without reputational damage?
Yeah, I think from a strategy standpoint, we again recommend crawl, walk, run. Don't try to hastily change everything at one time. Really think of it more of as an evolution. When thinking about sunsetting nonprofit partners, we always recommend providing like a goodbye grant, so to speak. So not just cutting off a relationship, especially if it's been a long-term relationship. Sometimes they run their course and it's time for a mutual split. But I think overall nonprofits understand that sometimes strategies evolve and change. I think part of what I've tried to share is that we want to start to think of where we can plant our flag for the long term so that we're not shifting too drastically or too often. But if you do have to come across that, or a partnership just has simply run its course or not meeting needs, we do recommend having some grandfathering um, process for that it does include some unrestricted grants so that they can continue on their mission without feeling an immediate kind of closing of the door impact to that funding.
That's great advice. Okay, last question is, how can companies make sure they're centering the right voices in their storytelling?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's important to think about when you are identifying partners on the nonprofit side, you're investing in their leadership as well. So a lot of nonprofits have extremely compelling leaders who are well versed and have a ton of experience in the space that they're working in. Um, just as important, a lot of the organizations have participants' success stories, kind of like a roster of either alumni or program participants that they know have an ability to tell a cohesive story or an incredible story of transformation. So I think it's just important to really open up those lines of communication. Who is comfortable speaking? If they're not comfortable speaking, how can they look over some of the talking points or some of your communications to make sure that you're not um, overlooking anything that is included. It's really just a great way to have sort of like a friendly outside inside relationship to ensure that you're not going to run into any trouble once the storytelling becomes external. So I think if your nonprofit partner has a good sense of your or a comfortability with your storytelling and the direction that you want to go with your key messages, it's probably a good sign that it's going to be well received within the larger community as well.
Great, thank you. Well, with that, I guess I would like to thank you, Drew, for your time and sharing your wisdom, this great information. I'd like to thank all the participants for logging in and listening. I hope you found this session valuable. We do want your feedback. There's a QR code on the screen, and my colleague just dropped the link to the survey. It's a very, very short survey. It'll take you about a minute. Please take it out before you log off. Please take the survey before you log off. And with that, I hope we see you at one of the upcoming CSR Marketplace sessions later today and tomorrow. And if not, also, we hope to see you at an upcoming ACCP program in the coming weeks. So with that, I hope everyone has a great rest of your afternoon and a great rest of your week. And in advance, happy July 4th.